I would like to welcome all of you. The Guru and the Guru's Shakti is a great mystery. But suffice it to say, in most simplest terms, the Guru is the grace-bestowing power of God. One could say that the Guru is the incarnation of mercy, the essence of awakening. The essence of the Guru is an eternal spirit, nothing separate from the ocean of consciousness that is the origin and cause of all things. One would say that the principle of the Guru is that which ripens, that which fulfills, that which completes. All things come into creation and they go through a kind of cycle. They arise, are born, manifest as a kind of expression of identity which is less than its full self-knowledge. Although we manifest completely as the expression of the creation, the totality of the creative impulse and the ocean of consciousness is fully expressed within us. In the passing between the two layers of consciousness, there is a kind of frequency of forgetfulness, a loss of knowledge of self. This forgetfulness arises as a subtle form of ignorance. It is in Eastern philosophy referred to as Maya. This quality generates a consciousness of existence, the dynamic of I am. And the energy between these two polarities produces a cycle of self-awareness in the creation of an I. We, beings of perception, establish a field of consciousness that would be characterized as fields of perception. And it is through these limited fields of perception that we come into contact with the creation. In this nature, there is consciousness seeking to perceive itself. As it comes into contact, it generates sensation. As it generates sensation, there is a quality of attachment. When you watch how your mind operates, there is a subtle idea that one thought follows another, and that if something happens once, there is an attachment to its manifestation, and we seek to cause it to happen again. In this expression of attachment, there's a development of grasping. This grasping produces a subtle bondage to the idea of perception itself. That had occurred once, we seek to cause it to occur again and again, and produce a kind of envelope of experience. Enormous spiritual resources of consciousness, of energy, of life force are expended in this process. This dynamic produces an energy that we would commonly call desire. And it is this dynamic of desire that is the energy that generates birth, life, decay, and death. This is the cycle of the operation of consciousness as a single perceiver. In the Yoga Tantra, this cycle is called the wheel of origination. If you think for a moment, you will find that almost every perception that you have will fall into one of these categories of experience. This is the architecture of what is called in spiritual philosophy the wheel of samsara, the wheel of cyclic existence. These energies feed into one another, producing a kind of bound condition. It's as if you were inside an ocean of infinite consciousness. But the momentum of your perception, your individual consciousness, is moving around the spokes of this wheel of separate origination with such force that you actually quite literally lose contact with the ocean in which you are suspended in, through which you are traveling, that is flowing through you, your every cell, your every atom, flooding your every breath. With this picture established, it is the Guru, and I also want to say the Guru Shakti, that provides the salvation. It is the Guru and the Guru Shakti that comes up to your individual bubble and goes, knock, knock. Is anybody home? And in this way, and it's quite literally done this simply. It is simply a contact. It is a touch. Your attention is redirected to the ocean of consciousness in which you are suspended, which you have in the momentum and thrall of the Maya that's taken place as you move around this endless wheel of psychic existence you've quite literally forgotten about. You will find references to this, the existence of this absolute truth that pervades you completely. In all of the dynamics of philosophy, all the references to what we call God, all the social structures that have institutionalized the God concept, and in so institutionalizing them, almost guaranteed that you will never turn your head and look out the window and see what's going on. Religion produces a kind of institutionalized forgetfulness. It's where God and forgetfulness get together and become something truly difficult to overcome. But the Guru has a very simple approach. The idea of the Guru is this principle of awakening. This is why I characterize the Guru as the incarnation of mercy. The Guru principle arose at the point of the creation as a component of the creation. And it's simply a wake-up call. It is the Guru that drives this ripening energy through every life form, however simple, however complex, however foreign, however familiar. We here on earth are a mere 500 years into the Renaissance, the awakening, where to some degree a certain amount of superstition has been eliminated, and we've begun to see into the mystery of the unseen forces of creation. And what we find with every new moment of awakening, a moment of consciousness, that the creation is more infinitely astounding, more awesome than could ever be conceived of, as we crack open the unseen world of the atom, begin to crack open the underlying code of the genetic sequence. And this is only the beginning. The word guru, representing the grace-bestowing power of God, and the word Shakti, which translates as the power of the guru. The Shakti represents, in the spiritual hierarchy, the creative force, what we call the Kundalini in the Yoga Tantra. A force of infinite consciousness, of infinite quality, beyond all conception, out of which everything is assembled, everything is made. The Guru Shakti is, for us, the point where consciousness, this inconceivable amount of power, spiritual force, and consciousness, comes to a point of awakening. We become aware of our dream taking place inside the dream of the creation. What the Guru does is rings the bell that wakes you up, breaks you out of the thrall of this infinite momentum of origination. The formula of the spokes of individual origination is so strong that it produces a tone of forgetfulness of the substance out of which all this quality of consciousness emerges. What the Guru does is brings the fabric of consciousness back into the formula. As I said, the Guru is an eternal spirit that arose at the moment of creation, is present when the creation fails, and is present again when the creation comes back into existence. It is eternal. You would say the Guru is the consciousness reflex of consciousness. That part of being that is luminous and self-aware. It's very important to get a feel for this, for what I'm saying. I'm speaking in vast absolutes, beyond comprehension. Yet at the same time, this incredibly vast force applies itself to you, through you, personally. The Guru Shakti, as I said, is eternal. You can think of it like a ray of consciousness. If the infinite creation is countless rays of consciousness, one of these rays is the Guru Shakti. It's like a radiance that is present in every molecule, every atom, every particle. It is the Chit itself. And so you will sometimes see that the Guru Shakti will begin to saturate a particular being of consciousness. And perhaps this being has been in the flow of origin and the flow of existence for countless ages, eons. So much so that their consciousness is pervaded by the consciousness principle that we call a Guru. These beings do exist. There's no part of their being that is unawakened. There's no part of their being that is dark. They manifest in 1,000 world systems. They manifest in 10,000 world systems simultaneously, because there's no limit to their consciousness. Why? Because they have so aligned with the Guru Shakti that there's no part of them that is resistant to that presence. There's no part of them that holds in darkness. We hear of these beings down through history. And the quality of this story pervades all cultures, all systems of belief, all religions, appearing again and again. So thus it would be said that the Guru principle has manifested as a particular being, a particular reflex of consciousness, an operation of consciousness in a given time and place. And it will be seen that the effect of the Guru Shakti that is present in a given time and place will have extraordinary impact on the sentient beings present at this time. One of the things that I've actually found out and I have enjoyed all my life is that when you speak the truth out loud, it sounds like science fiction. And I've always enjoyed that. It's like, it sounds so outrageous that it couldn't possibly be true, yet it is. The Guru Shakti is a very special impulse. It is impossible to describe, but it's like an algorithm that processes the inconceivable into food, into energy, into spiritual essence. The Kundalini, the force of creation, is like the sun. We consider the sun for just a moment. It is well understood that the entire dynamic of life on Earth is a full relationship of the balance of elements present here on this planet in relationship to the distance of the rays of the sun. That incredible force of light and heat, and 7/10 of the planet being given over to water to modify that incredible force. If we're just a few thousand miles closer, this is a burning ember. A few thousand miles farther away, it's an iceberg. In other words, there's an extraordinary balance held. If the Kundalini is the sun, then the Guru is this principle of balance. The Kundalini is an ocean of infinite force, inconceivable force. You could never come to the end of it, and you come even somewhat close to it, and you can be burned to ashes in a second. Your mind destroyed, your body destroyed. So, going back to the beginning of this story of what is the idea of the Guru principle, that the Guru principle is the principle of awakening, of remembrance, that rings the bell and says, hello, this is what you've forgotten. And at the same time, they direct your consciousness into that inconceivable ocean of consciousness, that inconceivable force of creation that is sun-like. To say it is sun-like is an understatement. But this is the effect of the Guru coming together in the awakening gesture. It's very simple. It's just a simple touch. That's all it takes. You can be touched by hand, you can be touched by line of sight, you can be touched by thought. And once the Guru touches you, this force of awakening begins to consume and transmute every one of your atoms, every one of your particles of being. The entire force of creation is behind it. But at the same time, the Guru modifies this energy of the Kundalini. It's just like, this principle of a transformer in our electrical system. The universe is basically electricity. And by modifying the Kundalini, it transforms that energy into a useful circuit, a useful vibration, that rather than being incinerated in a second, rather than being obliterated by the energy of those billion suns, that energy is made gentle. It flows into you and through you, and atom by atom, particle by particle, vibration by vibration, it begins to awaken you. Your consciousness begins to break out of the shell of the thrall of the Maya that has been held in place through the momentum of the wheel of independent origin, yet you've forgotten, by virtue of the power of Maya, the true nature of yourself, the true nature of your origin. Suffice it to say, this wake-up call is very powerful. By the time you've gone through countless lifetimes, thousands, tens of thousands of incarnations, and your consciousness has been absorbed by the momentum of desire that is expressed in the basic spokes of the wheel of independent origin, it is a very powerful, very vast, and totally complete shift of paradigm. This is the way the Guru Shakti works. It does not generate a recourse to a system of beliefs. It absolutely does not create a new religion. It simply breathes the life of truth into you. And you are transformed. This takes place from the inside out. The quality of this touch, this knock on the door, this wake-up call, is called Shaktipat. The word Shaktipat translates very beautifully as the idea of descent of grace. The idea of grace being a gift. It's not something you've earned, it's a gift. And it's a form of favor. It's the moment the sun is shining in your backyard that day. And the Guru is arising as the expression of the mercy of God. You should understand that the Guru and God are the same. The Guru is the reflex of awakening, is the reflex of mercy. Eternal and endless. The totality of God is present in the operation of the Guru. In the situation where the Guru Shakti is being embodied by a sentient being, what you're oftentimes dealing with is a being that has been existing so long in the cycle that they have been saturated by the Guru Shakti. Countless lifetimes, many lifetimes, and they become an agency of the Guru. Some beings that manifest as the Guru Shakti were never human. They're simply a manifestation of consciousness that appears at a given time and place to generate the Shaktipat at a given time and a given place. In other cases, perhaps the human being started in the human cycle. Started in the incarnational cycle, maybe here on earth, came up through the trenches, manifested, got into the human form, received Shaktipat and was transformed and awakened, and continued to exist in a kind of service. Because if the Guru is anything, and if the Gurus are anything, they are the servants of God. And they're all up and down the ladder. But I want you to take a moment to appreciate what I'm telling you. In whatever form the Guru Shakti comes to you, makes that contact. Perhaps it happened while you were in the womb. Perhaps it happens in the last moment of the last breath of a given life. Perhaps you come into psychic contact with the virtual army of beings that are operating in agency with the Guru. This moment of Shaktipat is something complete and total. When you are given Shaktipat, you are not coming involved with the personal power of a given person or a given place. You have to understand, again, the Guru is the grace-bestowing power of God, the incredible force of that inconceivable unity is for that moment, at that time, thinking about you. It is of the nature of awakening. It is of the nature of the elimination of ignorance. All of the dynamics of consciousness that are the fruit of the cycle of Mayic activity and behavior. All the dynamics of the momentum of your action as you move relentlessly on the wheel of samsara is transformed. Your memories of an individual identity are true, but they're like a dream. It's like you think about last night and you had a dream and you were on a road and then you saw a tiger and then you rode the tiger down the road. And then you got to the end of the road and you went up into the mountains and you went to the mountains and you flew in the sky. All of those are memories of a dream. In the same way, the dynamic of your behavior in this world, since you were born, since you've gone through all the dynamics of the cycles of life, as you start to turn the wheel and begin the process of decay and approaching death, and then step through that doorway where the mind and the body are separated. That journey you have taken many times. So many times you would be shocked at the number. And all of the activity of the manifestation of birth and life, decay and death, the generation of the sensory fields, the expression of reaching out and touching the created universe, all of the dynamics of sensation and contact, the dynamic of attachment, yearning, grasping. They all happened, but they happened in a dream. They happened in the dream of psychic existence. They're all transitory. And as real as the dream you had last night. When you're in the dream, it's completely real. Then the dream is over and another dream starts. And when that dream starts, that dream is completely real. And as soon as you start that dream, what do? You forget about the dream you were just in. Now you're in this dream. And that dream comes to an end, you start another dream. When the Guru Shakti touches you and Shaktipat begins, the energy of these dreams, which exist as a force of memory and are kind of the glue of your identity at any given time, starts to become transformed into the light of pure consciousness. In other words, it's a paradigm shift, a foundation shift. The foundation of your identity is being changed. Once you've been touched by the Guru, once Shaktipat has occurred, this is what happens. It can't be stopped, it can't be resisted, it cannot fail. It's also important to understand that your understanding of the nature of the Guru is a deeply spiritual thing. It's what you know to be true in the depth of your heart, in the depth of your being. And your connection to that is the driving wheel of a spiritual engine. Once Shaktipat occurs, it's not so much that there are any really particular practices that you must do. The practices are there to help you deal with what's already going to happen. The dynamic of awakening is very powerful and absolutely irresistible. it begins to move through you and change you. This is where the relationship of the dynamics of the Eightfold Yoga, the dynamics of breath, the dynamics of mental control, of concentration, meditation, the ability to stop the mind, and most important, the ability to enter into samadhi, where the mind can move into the condition of consciousness wherein it actively includes the existence of the ocean of consciousness and the infinite force of the Kundalini, which of course is expressed in every molecule of not only this universe but endless universes, but it's also expressed in every molecule inside you as you. And so it's important to understand that spiritual practices are a way to interact with a very profound process. Put it another way, if you were to take the practices of meditation, all of the dynamics of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the Shiva Sutras, they would have X amount of power, X amount of benefit if you generated these practices without having a guru, not received Shaktipat. In other words, the practices themselves would only have limited impact on you. But you reverse the polarity and you gain Shaktipat. The practices of the Shiva Sutras and Patanjali Yoga Sutras are essentially the motorcycle repair handbook of how a human being awakens. And by understanding how the process of awakening are conducted inside your system, you can get into an alignment of cooperation and interconnectedness with a process that is already set in motion by the dynamic of the Shaktipat. The picture you should have in your mind is that if you are a single drop floating in the endless ocean, and you've forgotten completely about the ocean, and you're happily living inside the drop, and the guru principle is that consciousness that comes up and goes tap, 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 behold the ocean. And as soon as you turn your consciousness to apprehend it, it comes pouring in, and the drop and the ocean become a single thing. And this is why the Sufis say the ocean is in the drop and the drop is in the ocean. It goes both ways. This is Shaktipat. It's not some wild idea that took place at the edge of time and is a leftover from a previous era or a previous age. It is a principle that is constantly present and goes through different phases of appearance and non-appearance, but is always present and always active. I mean, it was very interesting. It's like I've been involved in spiritual training my whole adult life. And I met all kinds of beings and many very adept and very powerful yogis. And their level of practice was quite literally astounding. And I got Shaktipat very young. I got Shaktipat when I was 21 years old. And I'd already been able to use the word guru in a sentence for some years, and I was looking for a guru. And I was fortunate to find a really hot one. It's like you get Shaktipat and you start your practicing and you start chanting mantras and doing the mantra and meditating as much as you can stand, and you start having extraordinary experiences. And I found that people that had been practicing for 10, 15, 20 years weren't even having a fraction of the level of experiences I was having. And I could tell that the difference was the Shaktipat ingredient, that the guru principle had cracked my egg and opened my consciousness to the ocean. My experience personally was always one of barely hanging on by my fingernails as this force came through me and changed my nature. And it was like waking up from a dream. And that's the end result of the Shaktipat. It's as if you woke up from a long dream. So you can start to sense and experience the absolute interconnectedness of all things. It's quite impossible to describe, but consciousness goes through a very powerful transformation. The idea of Shaktipat is essentially the arrival of the ocean at your doorstep. Even when Shaktipat occurs, there is still the great forces that we meditate on and contemplate endlessly and rarely understand, the forces of destiny and the forces of fate, still are subtly present inside the unfoldment of every individual. The distinction between the two is very simple. The dynamic of destiny is irresistible and cannot be altered in any way. It is the manifestation of God as you. But the dynamic of fate is, as they say, that is the fickle. It can go this way, it can go that way. The destiny, the destination is constant, remains the same, and has never changed. But how you choose to travel the path is completely and totally 100% your choice. This is the principle of free will. It is protected at all costs. We'll oftentimes see when a person, having even received Shaktipat, as the process of awakening occurs, there is the dream of momentum of the previous identity, still in place and still struggling to hold its position, albeit being driven by this irresistible presence of Shaktipat. And they'll find that certain qualities of life and mental attitudes simply begin to lose their thrall, lose their connection, and simply start to fall away. They simply fall away. Sometimes there'll be a phase of confusion between the old way and the new birth that is taking place spontaneously with every breath. I feel that this is where the use of spiritual practices comes into play, because they are very powerful methodologies that ties you into the incredibly complex architecture that is a human being. We've spoken endlessly about the dynamic of the human form and the four bodies, physical, subtle physical, causal and supracausal, and how they interface. And each level of consciousness is at the center of its own universe. In the waking, dream, and deep sleep state, they kind of hold their own position. But when the Shaktipat occurs, what we refer to here, especially in hard light, as the fourth state, that state of consciousness that becomes aware of the ocean of consciousness. And we begin to have direct experiences of the waking state and the animated dynamic of perception through the sensory fields. But then we also begin to spontaneously experience consciousness at the level of electricity itself, the electricity of the prana and the life force. We begin to experience consciousness at the level of the causal body, which is outside of time, has no space, and is the foundation of mental formation and the dynamic of what we call mind. Countless states of mind. We begin to have conscious awareness of this. This begins to kind of tip and rock the boat. Not only that, we will begin also to have the condition of the experiences of the fourth state, the direct apprehension of the infinite ocean of consciousness and the billion suns of force of the Kundalini that is the manifestation of the creation. One of the ideas of the Guru Shakti is that it is irresistible and unfailing. Once the Shaktipat occurs, it cannot fail. And so what I've also seen is that there is a kind of tempo, a steady, burning tempo. Not too fast, not too slow, just steady. is one of the main effects of the Guru Shakti on the Kundalini and the Guru Shakti's impact on the individual. If they got Shaktipat and then in the very next second the entire curtain was ripped away, the person would probably just go insane. They wouldn't be able to deal with the balance so swift. It's better that it's approached by degrees. When the curtain is finally ripped away, I think that, just based on my experience and what I've read, everybody thinks it's too soon. No, I'm not ready. But then you have to accept it's a destiny. It's what God decided to happen. It's God decided. This is your destiny. This is where it happens for you. The idea of the fate, once the Shaktipat is given, there's a subtle touch of spirit. If you stay in the pocket of the Guru and stay in the pocket of the Guru Shakti, you'll be moved swiftly to the goal, and you will be supported on all sides while it happens. And then, inevitably, you're thrown in the deep end and told to swim. And when you consider that, it's just like everything. It's like the more training, the better. More preparation, the better. You want the best result. And there's a subtle connection between the idea of the spiritual practices that are basically, they're not invented, they are connected to the way we are put together. And the idea of understanding how the breath interacts with the prana, how the prana interacts with the mind, how the prana matrix interacts with the body, how the body, mind, prana matrix is the support for the apprehension of the fourth state, which is not something outside. When you experience the fourth state, you don't see it out there. It comes from in here. And it comes through you as you. And there are very powerful methods of amplification of the Shaktipat and the Kundalini awakening that are present in the spiritual training. There is a logic to the connection of the Guru Shakti and the agency of Shaktipat and the vessel of Shaktipat. There is an entire class of beings that exist in this universe who are the servants of God and the agency of Shaktipat. These beings are called Siddhas, and they are an entire race of beings, some of which have never been human and come from every level of life, from the highest paradise to the deepest hell. Somewhere along the line, the Guru Shakti came up, touched them, and they were transformed and awakened, and they became realized. They became awakened to the truth. It has nothing to do with good or bad or any concept of evil. Those are basically concepts of religion. They don't really exist. Everything arises out of its own source. And some things are good for other things and not good for other things. When they get together, conflict arises. The idea of the Siddhas, many of them present on the earth, once were human, received Shaktipat, and were awakened. And then as an aspect of their spiritual training, they swim in the Guru Shakti forever. Why? Because it's unbelievably blissful, extremely exciting, very interesting work. And it is this race of Siddhas that are one of the broadest agencies of Shaktipat, active and present on this world at this time. Most of them remain veiled, and many operate in a kind of hiding in plain sight, but they produce an active agency of Shaktipat. Once this Shaktipat occurs, you come into contact with their company, come under the veil of their protection, and you begin this incredible transformation of awakening. all the siddhas and siddha agencies of the Guru are completely different. You'll never see two even remotely alike. The impact of Shaktipat is very much like the impact of nutrients and sunshine and water on a flower. That impact does not turn every flower into the same kind of flower. Each flower is unique and comes up according to its own conditions, its own karma. You can have two roses, the exact same kind of rose, they'll grow side by side, they'll be completely different. Same with human beings, same with sentient beings, same with siddhas, same with gurus. They'll have very unique modes of operation that have everything to do with their own nature and the process of how they awakened. It is a matter of fate and destiny how the Guru Shakti comes to you. Another thing that I would say is that the dynamic of Shaktipat is its own force. It is the awakening impulse. In other words, it's all that needs to happen. Once you get Shaktipat, you're going to awaken. According to the dynamics of fate and destiny, it's going to change according to you and your choices. In other words, once you get Shaktipat and you do this series of decisions and this series of actions, that says, okay, according to this set of decisions, you will receive the fruit of Shaktipat and you will awaken completely and totally at this time and this place in the map of time and space. You get Shaktipat and you make an entirely different set of decisions, then that will produce the effect that you will receive the fruition of awakening and enlightenment and the fruition of your Shaktipat at this time and in this place. In other words, the destiny remains the same, the fate subtly shifted based on the weight and balance of your own choices. The best is to get realization the same lifetime you get Shaktipat. Generate as much broken field running as you can, running through the dynamics of the unfoldment of your own karma, the unfoldment of your own destiny, and get to that point where, because your own point and you're absorbed. But perhaps it'll be in the next life or the lifetime after that. When Shaktipat has occurred, the separation of the mind from the body is not significant because the Shaktipat is running on the principle of absolute consciousness. The body is always mutable, comes and goes. It's also the fundamental basis of our confusion. Based on the fact that you've assembled yourself in the waking state in the sensory fields, you have mistakenly taken the body as the refuge of your consciousness. It's a misunderstanding, and it's understandable. The fact is, you are infinite consciousness. You always have been. You just forgot. And this is what Shaktipat reveals. The idea of meditation. Meditation is very powerful. My guru, Swami Muktananda Paramahamsa, was big on meditation. He was a yogi his whole life, got Shaktipat, and went through a very intense phase of meditation, and that's how his awakening came to him. And it was very logical that he was my guru because I also had a knack for meditation. It's very easy to meditate. In fact, I like meditating. I think incredibly interesting things take place, very powerful, very exciting. The dynamics of meditation and spiritual practices, understanding and use of mantra, the understanding of how the prana interacts with the body, etc. I think it's kind of like what an exercise regimen is to an athlete. It improves your skills. The talent is present, but the harder you work, the better the results are. And this is what is the essence of the intensive. It is a Shaktipat station. One of the ideas behind the opportunity of Shaktipat, such as this, where we are sitting together, the agency of Shaktipat is present with you in the room, which is to say, the teacher becomes like a doorway. And that profound Shaktipat pours through that doorway. And in the contact of mind, heart, breath, speech, and touch, that Shaktipat thoroughly pervades you. One of the ideas of the deep bellows breathing is there are natural movements of the prana, the life force, which is the second body. If you try to hold it all in the physical body, you'll just get this sense of incredible pressure and you'll become physically and mentally uncomfortable. But if you allow the breath to open and relax, in the second body especially, the prana shakti, which is the formation of the subtle physical body, the prana shakti is the form of the body wherein the life force is infused into the body. You'll find that there are a series of subtle energies. There's a very powerful descending shakti and a powerful ascending shakti, one of expansion and contraction and infusion. If you begin to employ the bellows breath and breathe deeply and slowly and allow the throb of the mantra of the Soham to expand and contract inside you, let it fill into the physical body, into the subtle physical body, into the mental body, and finally into the body of the fourth state, the Atman, the single atom that in the human being is the appearance of infinite consciousness. You will find the movement from the waking state into the apprehension of the true ocean of consciousness. Very smooth, very blissful, very wonderful. It's important not to be afraid. Nothing that happens is something new. It's more like you're becoming aware of something that's always been happening. The Shaktipat introduces a quality of light into your system that blends all four bodies together into a single reflexive apprehension. And it doesn't happen because I say it does or I want it to. It happens because it's the entire ocean. Who can resist the entire ocean? And this will be the nature of our afternoon together. Why don't we meditate to conclude this opening session?